Alright, yes, making another video. Sorry. Brain is just a little bit, so, what the hell. Alright, so this guy, Energy Puns, interesting name, but I don't know what that means. But anyway, well, whatever. When you listen to Hothladay, you can tell that he's more concerned with his inflection of words rather than the content of what he is saying. I don't think that's really true. I don't know what to say. I mean, some of this is just familiarity problem. You get sort of used to certain pieces of furniture, and even when they're useless, you I can't throw that out. And maybe it's, I've said before, I mean, Hothladay is really in some ways just too silly. You can't, I can't find I mean, this isn't that complicated in my opinion. I mean, for him to say it's not happening, and that's what he's pretending. He's pretending a human being is just molecules like a pen, and that this emergent property of consciousness is not somehow a significant property, when, in my opinion, plastic is insignificant. Skin is insignificant. Flesh, blood, that's all insignificant. The only property that's significant is this emergent consciousness thing. That's the one that has significance. And you're saying, how can you have an argument with somebody about that? That's just ludicrous to have an argument. So yes, he's ludicrous. And it's a waste of time, probably. So yeah, I should probably take your advice. Anyway, he's trying desperately to sound like a philosopher. Yeah, I don't know if that's what he's trying to do. So again, this psychoanalysis is kind of useless. I think what he's trying to do desperately is rationalize his position in the universe, and he doesn't wish to see the bleakness because obviously bleak is not a good thing, and so he's running from it, in my opinion. Maybe. It's hard to say because he does have a droneness to him. Like he's not even paying attention to the TV show anyway. And you're almost, So, I don't know. It's a little bit strange. I have to admit that it's hard to qualify what he's... Because Anaconda, you can see he's more of a passionate guy who just doesn't want somebody to fuck up his sex routine. It's like he's jerking off, and the last thing he wants to hear about is, your house is on fire or some other kind of... He just doesn't want to... Nah, don't bother me. I'm right in the middle of something. He's always right in the middle of something. And since you keep giving him attention, I don't know if I'm really giving him that much attention. And again, let's understand that he represents not an insignificant number of people. I mean, the Amazing Atheist, Paul's Ego, these people are all nihilists, essentially. They won't call themselves what they are, but that's what they are. They're value relativists, which is the same thing as saying it just doesn't matter because there's no truth, so just make up shit. He probably interprets that attention as validation. Well, I doubt that's what he interprets it as. But he probably gets some validation from other people who comment, and like I say, he probably gets validation from people like Anaconda. So he can say, look, that guy's, well-traveled, and he's read lots of crap, and he's familiar with lots of silly religions and myths and all kinds of history and shit, and he believes what I believe, so we must be right. Because even though I don't have his life experience, I know math and stuff, and he doesn't know that, so we've got this covered. Because, see, I'm a math guy, and he's a travel guy, and we both agree, so therefore we've got this thing proven. And, so I don't think I'm validating. But, it doesn't really matter. I mean, what I'm trying to do is figure out that this really might be part of the problem in terms of communicating with human beings, is that they are fundamentally nihilist and selfish. They're conveniently nihilist, let's put it that way. That this idea of pretending that you can qualify your opinion by just stating it. I am human, I have opinion, therefore I am right, therefore I can eat pigs. I think he is just feeding off your energy via attention you give him. Maybe not. I mean, obviously, what he chooses to react to, YouTube's is sort of a big place. There are lots of other subjects you could interject into, and yet he feels compelled to play in my park, so to speak. But I think one could argue that I found him, in a sense, rather than him finding me. In the sense that, yeah, if you go on YouTube, anywhere past, to even after Google bought it, you could almost say it became harder and harder to start an account and engage with people, to get noticed, so to speak. So that just might be part of the thing, is that I was one of the people who interacted with him. All I can say is when I sense that someone is trying to just feed off my energy, I try my best just to ignore them. Yeah, well, I don't, feeding off of energy, I mean, I might say that that happens in the drama sense, that you can see that some people probably provoke reactions, provoke drama, because they profit from it. But I don't think Hathaway is in any way really profiting from aggressively defending some of the things he says. I mean, because I think a lot of people say, that's not what I'm sensing. I mean, I don't feel like nothing. I don't feel like I'm a plastic bottle. I don't think my welfare is as irrelevant as a bag of garbage. I think they know their welfare is more relevant than the welfare of a bag of garbage. So anyway, with that context, leave his attempt to fiddle with another Holiday video. Now, I only watched the first 2 minutes of this one, and I won't watch any further because the premise is ludicrous. And I'll do the same thing to this video. As soon as this premise becomes ludicrous, it's going to be over, because there's just no point. I'm not going to have a conversation with somebody telling me my feelings don't matter and that they have no value component. It's just a non-starter as a premise. I'm experiencing the fucking things. I mean, it's just absolutely insane to tell me it doesn't mean anything. It's just absolutely insane.
In Mendham. First of all, I must confess, these topics can be a little bit tricky to deal with. Back in the day, and even perhaps now, my dialogue might be prone to...
I think I'll speed this up. Yeah, I think it's okay to go to 1.5 speed on a Holiday. I'm not really trying to be rude. I just, trying to expedite things a little bit. So I think we'll just go to 1.5, and I think we'll be okay. Still be legible, I think.
Introducing a little bit of confusion about my understanding of your philosophy. I used to be more prone to it, for sure, and maybe originally I didn't even understand it. The difference between the cause of the pain and the sensation of the pain.
There we go, right. And I'll concede that, that's been clearly a problem, is that I've been very frustrated because I keep trying to make it understood that I agree that most human values, most things that human beings value, are projected statements of value. They say my pills are important because my pills keep me alive. They say, they make something valuable because they define it as being relevant to their lives. Like, it'll help my children. Like, Jesus Freak thought it was okay to go solicit money because he wanted to stay wealthy. And he valued staying wealthy more than he valued the fact that poor people are going to give up important money to their lifestyle, important money to their comfort. They're going to be more uncomfortable in their lives, so he can maintain an excessive, you could argue, a more opulent lifestyle. So he could keep eating grapes. They were walking without sandals, kind of a thing. And that's a value, but it's not. It's a description of value, but it's a description based on the idea of yes, ultimately it comes down to some intrinsic interest. But my argument is that if you take away those definitions and just go with what the feeling things are doing. So just think of the pawns and the kings and the bishop and just measure what the feelings are, not measure the causes. Except for the fact that you're trying to measure the fact that 10 pawns just got brutally slaughtered on a battlefield, so a bishop could acquire 5 acres of property. And you could understand that that was a silly value equation.
That said, I want to clear up an issue to say that I do understand that. And I want to clear up an issue and hopefully have you recognise that insofar as testimony, we talk about being able to testify and legitimately give testimony to things. You seem to think I'm saying that you can't testify to anything. You can testify to what is happening to yourself, for sure. My objection is about your testimony, about the obligations you place on me.
I'm only putting the obligations I'm placing on you are what I'm calling rational obligations. I'm saying unless you can find some way that I can distinguish between the one pawn and another pawn. So you're saying Holiday pawn is something special and distinct and different. And I'm saying I can find no difference. I can find no way to say it's okay if somebody else has a broken leg, to spare Holiday, or more precisely, for Holiday, I will break somebody else's leg. That's all I'm saying. I'm saying, why is it okay to break legs for Holiday, but it's not okay to break Holiday for the other pawn's betterment? That's what I'm saying. You're saying you're unequal, and I'm saying, well, explain how.
Right, so you have these experiences.
I mean, that more relates to the fact that the pig brain is perfectly capable of manifesting sensations equal to our own in the sense of our ability to feel badly or to feel happy. These are real emotions that happen in these other mammals. And your philosophy is grounded in a perception that that's irrelevant in the value equation of your life. And I'm saying it can't be declared irrelevant.
I'm of the position, let's say, for argument's sake, I'm saying, so what? How do you logically or evidence and force me to, based upon pure logic and reason, to have this obligation?
Properties. Again, I'm just saying that, look, you have to do the third person thing. So the first thing you have to be able to do is say, okay, I can elevate myself and look at the game, the maze. And I can see that there's more than one player. So first I'm just saying, unless you have some argument from I'm special, I'm just saying there is no argument to say the welfare of the Holiday is more important than the welfare of all the other pawns, generically. And so the starting position is that pain is pain is pain is pain, broken leg, broken leg, broken leg, nail in the eye, nail in the eye, nail in the eye, that's all the same. And so that's all I'm saying is that from that perspective, the economics becomes very different. And it's really, as I pointed out, the enemy is the broken leg. The enemy isn't my neighbor or the other pawns. The thing I'm in competition with, the thing I want to fight, is the broken leg itself from manifesting in anybody.
And see this obligation of mattering. Now, I can wrap this up in a simple question. And I've tried several.
It's again, the simple answer is it's not an individual game. So you're saying that your game piece is individual, separate and unique in the universe. And what I'm saying is no, it isn't. It consumes matter, it interacts with matter, it does all this stuff with these other things. It's completely, the fact that we are tied together is fundamental. You can't play the game as an individual. You don't live on an island. The economics are not the same as you living on an island by yourself.
Many months ago to put simple questions to you, and they never went answered. I hope you can turn to these questions. But I'm going to explain my understanding of your philosophy. And it's important you tell me, not reiterate in different words what you're saying, but also, you're fine to do that, but explicitly, if I'm incorrect in what you're saying, to tell me why this is explicitly not what you're saying.
Well, thanks, but yeah, I think I do this already. I think I'm trying to be very careful with both you and Anna Conovad, and I'm trying not to overreact, and I'm trying to explain why certain axioms are unacceptable.
So I have the, I'll lay it like this, right? I stab myself, okay, or I get stabbed, right? Now, we all can understand we have this self-relationship of pain going on in here, right? We have this pain. We could probably, over time, agree to this label of pain. Pain from knife, pain from burning, pain from scratching, headache, pain, just...
Yes, a bad thing. Bad thing. Bad thing happened. Bad thing.
Self-occurring pain. And we can attach another word to it and achieve agreement. Again, a self-relationship, a first-person point of view, where we say, I had this pain has value in the sense that, you know, we can attach...
I'm just saying the third person sees it. You know, so that's what I would say. You know, you want to, again, keep saying, you know, keep wanting they and theming and meing all of this stuff. And I'm saying there's no logical reason for me to make a distinction between first person and some other person when I know exactly the same thing is occurring, when I know substantially the same thing is happening. By property definition, I understand something fundamentally similar is happening.
See, we could abstractly attach numbers to it and understand I don't want to go there, and I much prefer this other experience. You can attach, you can say this, you could claim that this is an intrinsic value.
Yes, I'm claiming that it's an intrinsic negative in what we would call the overall value equation. That the negative things are these things that are intensely negative, like getting stabbed or nail in the eye or some other kind of gross, common, it kind of always works that way, no matter, unless the thing is unconscious, I'm kind of guaranteed to create negative sensation, unpleasantness in the conscious organism if I do this act to it.
But I've heard you just say in a video that this intrinsic value is based upon a categorical fact that you can categorize these types of feelings as intrinsically good and intrinsically bad. So at this point we find your philosophy based upon the philosophy of intrinsic value is based upon the philosophy of intrinsic badness.
Well, ultimately it comes down to the badness, because what I'm saying, as I've explained, is that we're getting gamed by the game. Nature is gaming us. So it has us used to the whip, and then it takes away the whip, and we say, wow, that feels really good. And then we go back to the whip. But then when it's taken away, that feels really good. So, yeah, the good is being manufactured most of the time when we gain protection or immunity from bad. That's when we feel good.
So you have this idea that this self-relation that's occurring after the stabbing is bad.
Again, the self-relationship is irrelevant in the sense that, again, we're using our rationality and our logic, and we've already established, at least I'm establishing for the sake of my argument, what I'm trying to explain to you is it's not the same fact, it's a different fact. The fact that feelings are qualitative is one fact. The fact that individuals are not as distinct as we'd like to be, I'm not special. In fact, I feel special. I feel like the world is me and the rest of the universe because I don't feel other people's sensations. I'm not their consciousness. I can't sense their consciousness. I can only acknowledge its existence. I can't taste it or smell it or experience it. But I can understand that what you're doing is just as much of a real experience as my real experience. So that's fact number 2 that has to be established. Axiom number 2, I'm not a god. Or if I am a god, we're all gods.
Now the question is, I might agree, you might agree that the stabbing of you has this self-relationship of bad, and I agree that the stabbing of me has the self-relationship of bad. I might burn myself or burn you and understand each time this experience is happening in the self, right? And there are these bad experiences. Okay?
Yes, consciousness is a self thing. It happens to an individual. We don't have a collective mind. We don't have a hive mind. We have individual minds, and the individual minds manifest the qualitative experience. So it always has to happen in an individual. But the point is, what's happening is not unique, is not separate. So it's like understanding the snowflake argument. Yes, the snowflakes are all unique, but the uniqueness is irrelevant. And the snow falls. And there's mountains of it.
Okay? But bad, as we've developed the concept, is merely almost synonymous with value, really.
Well, I'm just saying value is the general term for the idea of having mathematics. So you say value is mathematics, and then you say in mathematics we have qualitative representations of quantity, and those are positive and negative.
Meaning, and
well, those are on a scale of forward and back, negative and relatively positive. Again, I've argued for a zero sum, which means the maximum number would be 0, and all you can really do is make a bigger mess. If you make no mess, you've done it perfectly and gotten nowhere.
In a sense, is really synonymous then with just the word pain. The additional meaning that is put there by persons to say something or claim something.
So that I just didn't follow that one at all. There's nothing contrived or put there. It's a description of the real circumstance. Through personal experience, I know the sensations to be qualitative. I know through logic that the properties that make me capable of experiencing qualitative are the same properties all the other individuals possess, including the other mammals. And therefore, anything I manifest as value is also being manifested in them. And I know that anything for a minor improvement in my condition, I can't cause a major destruction of something else's condition and make that mathematics work. The mathematics is collective. It isn't just my universe. It's got more stuff in it. The math has to apply to the whole game.
It's put there by persons to say something or claim something.
Well, it's not put there for that purpose. We know evolutionarily why it's put there. So again, it's not about making claims. It's about accurately describing what's happening. So again, you can say, I'm making a claim that the knife causes me pain. But it's not a claim you can refute or dispute, I don't think, in any kind of honest way. So it's clearly a description of what's happening. I mean, unless you want to say I'm lying. I'm just saying it's a perfectly good description for me to say the knife entering my flesh causes me a bad, negative state of being.
About the experience. So, I say to you, if bad is happening to you, or bad is happening to some other, why is it my job to collect these bads? Bad in nature happening to the little...
I'm just saying, if you have any respect for the value, that's the obligation. That would be asking, if I was capable of saying it didn't matter to me, and that is that if the knife went into me, I did nothing to mitigate against the pain. I didn't even take an aspirin. I don't do anything. I don't try to stop the knife from going into me. I don't recognize badness as meaning anything. The fact that I am recognizing that badness means something means that it means something whether it happens to me or somebody else. It still means something. I mean, the meaning goes with the transference. When bad happens to somebody else, it's not a word bad. It's what bad represents, which is the entire sensation formula. So you can't take the meaningful sensation away from the word bad. It's a meaningful sensation when it happens to me, one that I will prevent happening with all possible exercise of my ability to exercise a preventive. And logically, I'm obligated to use the same prevention for any bad that exists because all the bads are equal. So again, you're making bad to me real, and you're making bad to him unreal. No, they're the same bad. Again, the enemy is the broken leg. The enemy isn't me against me trying to deflect things to other feeling creatures. The objective is to deflect the bad into no vessel that can make the bad realized. Prevention.
Why is it my job?
Again, the job is merely a logical deduction of obligation. The obligation is only to be logically consistent. If it means something when it happens to me, it has to mean something when it happens to them. It just is just as meaningful. The bad doesn't change its name because it's happening to me. It's exactly the same bad. It's the same -3.
To collect these bads and get rid of them, or even better, prevent them from ever happening.
Because the math applies to the whole game. That's all I can say to you. There's no logical reason to say the math only applies, the value math only applies to this section of the board. The rest of the board is irrelevant. There's no logical reason to think there's a perimeter of value reality that goes around me, and that's as far as it goes. And it doesn't matter what happens outside of me. Of course it does. Those are real bads. If they can be seen, they can be known to be bad, and they need to be unbadded. Just as much as they need to be unbadded when they happen to me, they need to be unbadded when they happen to somebody else. It's the same amount of need for prevention or mitigation. The bleeding wound on my arm is just as much in need of a band-aid as the bleeding wound on somebody else's arm. There's no difference. The bleeding wound is the bleeding wound. If my brain thinks it's logical to put a band-aid on it for me, my brain must think it's logical to put a band-aid on it for them, because it's the same damn thing.
From a logical point of view, this has just been a word game. The supposed evidence isn't really evidence at all, except from self-testimony and attaching words and saying these words have meaning. And when one...
Well, again, so now you're making assertions that you previously said you were going to accept for the sake of this argument, so I don't understand. Now you're saying the bad, I'm somehow deceived and lying, that the bad isn't really bad, so you're not conceding it's bad. I don't understand. What's the point of this? What's the point of saying that you accept that, okay, I get it. You're just describing the quality of the sensation. And now you're saying I'm not allowed to do that description. I can't deny the badness. So you're saying again that somehow you have some secret information that makes it known to me that the bad isn't really bad. Sorry. No, I haven't seen the evidence of this bad isn't bad thing. Show me how bad isn't bad.
Person says, goes beyond, I can agree that my pain is bad and understand that it means bad for me in this self-relationship. And I'll agree to that word as a label for this circumstance. And I'll agree to understand that this is bad for the bird as a label for a circumstance that bird wants to get out of the bird trap.
Well, again, it's not about trying to get out of something. So again, you're just changing the game. You're saying that the value isn't real, that it's not that it's bad sensations he's having. It's not that the sensations have a negative value in and of themselves. You're saying it only has a desire to get out. And that's not what I'm saying a wound is. That's what I'm not saying. When a knife goes in, the sensation is the important part. Whether or not I want to pull the knife out again is kind of okay. Yes, that makes logical sense. But it's the sensation I want to avoid more than anything else.
What I have no reason to agree to, and I've seen no evidence for, is that I'm compelled to go and collect the bad of the bird, the bad of birds there, or even.
Well, again, I'm just saying, it's not something I can say. Here's your obligation, or you go to hell. I'm saying if I want to be rationally consistent, if I want to be logically consistent, if I want to have something called intellectual integrity, I can come up with no rationale that makes this person's pain less than mine, or this person's, or that person's, or yours. I can't come up with a rational reason why it's okay for me to cut your flesh and it's not okay to cut my flesh. I can't come up with rational reasons why it's any different. So I don't know how you can't keep... I've said this so many ways. The bad is coming. Deflecting it to another feeling thing is not a victory, because then it still happens. I have to prevent it from happening to win. It doesn't matter who it happens to, logically. To say that the Monopoly pieces, to say that the dog is the only piece that matters and that the other pieces don't matter, there's no rational reason to make a distinction. They all matter.
Prevent the bad, not deflect it to somebody else, but actually catch it and tear it up and make sure it never happens. And that is the question. And that is not only the question, but the criticism.
Well, again, to criticize me because I recognize the fact that I'm not special. So you're claiming I'm special. I have some right to think that my feelings are special feelings, and I should put a Band-Aid on my wounds, and there's no reason, logically, to think that the wound on the other things that are just the same as me, but I'm calling me special, that somehow their wounds don't need healing. It's just... There's no reason for me to not recognize the wound and the properties of the wound. Again, this goes back to the nepotism argument. What makes a child valuable? The properties of the child or the word my? I'm arguing it's the properties of the child that make the child's welfare valuable, not the my part. The my part is irrelevant. The child part is the relevant part.
And I wonder how you answer that criticism.
Well, again, I have already answered it. I don't know how to say it in any other words. There's no logic I can come up with to justify thinking that my negative sensations are more real than other people's negative sensations. Chemotherapy is unpleasant and nasty, whether I'm experiencing it or somebody else is experiencing it. It's the same bad.
To add,
it's the same negative number.
Right at the end of your video, I just finished that. I was like, in the last 10 seconds, when you talked about repulsion characteristics. And so if we label these experiences as having repulsion character,
well, I really don't want, you're going to hang on words, and now you're just going to play a word game. I mean, it's a throwaway concept. I'm just saying that part of the character of it, in terms of me trying to describe it as bad, I'm just trying to use all the words that we have in our vocabulary. I think it should have been enough for me to say the word torture without having to go any further. But the point is you assholes are forcing me to apply all these other words to it. And I really don't want to do that. I really don't want to talk about reactions that are essentially emotive or even from nature. I don't want to even talk about nature's purpose because it's irrelevant to the fact that we have this attribute. So, it's just irritating that now you're going to play a word game, because I've had to use extensive vocabulary to get to the concept of what a bad thing is. Because you won't accept the existence of the word, well, look, we know what torture is. Now, do we really have to sit there and qualify it as being intense anxiety, overwhelming fear, intense throbbing pain, that's going at 40 megahertz a pain cycle, or do you have to get all this technicality into it? So again, this was an obligation you fuckers imposed, and now you're going to sit there and selectively pull words out and play games with them.
Labeling of describing how the self wants to merely move away, or not merely because you'll notice that, but how the
Say again. So again, you're going to talk about whether it's going to provoke a reaction that is an action, and it's not about what provoked action there is. It's about what you're thinking about it. The badness is something recognized by your brain. Your brain, your intellect understands it as a bad thing. I mean, the fact that it's sensually repulsive is just part of the description of the fact that the poo smells. The poo is pooey. Oh, fuck.
In the sense that it's so easy to define words just as labels to describe situations and feelings. But if we observe the categories of these bads as having a repulsive character, they're again still self-relationship.
If I use the word obnoxious, are you going to write that on a piece of paper next? So put obnoxious, sensually obnoxious. It's just no point. The only word that matters is the negative one, okay? Bad, negative. Focus on those words. Don't play with these other words.
It's repulsive to self, and it's not added anything to the argument and the criticism, saying, why do I have to collect and prevent repulsive circumstances?
Because they're bad and they're negative, and it's a value equation. We're doing a value equation. We've established that there's a negative number called bad. There's a positive counter effect, which is less negative, which is positive movement relative to a negative position. So we can balance these things called goods and bads and do some sort of value math. That's the fucking point.
Other than to myself, I guess.
Yeah, to myself again. There's just no point. I mean, this is not a complex premise. If I was talking about pill bottles, you wouldn't sit there and say this plastic to itself and this plastic to itself. You wouldn't waste time with this crap, okay, of some sort of selfness. You'd recognize plastic bottle, general category plastic bottle. Feeling thing, feeling thing, feeling thing. Value creator, value creator, value creator. Experience haver, experience haver, experience haver. It's, if you can't accept that premise as just logically obvious, then what's the point?
This could be summed up as how else is this anything but a word game from which you...
Right, the word game is defining value by establishing positive and negative experiences are good and bad experiences. Wow, that's a fucking word game. No, it fucking isn't. You writing repulsive on a piece of paper because I threw in another adjective to describe what the nature of badness is, okay, because you're incessantly demanding some sort of explicit description. I'm supposed to pull bad out of my consciousness and put it on the fucking table and say, see, this is what a bad is. That's your expectation, which is a silly motherfucking expectation. I shouldn't have to talk to another sentient being capable of language and explain to them what torture is. For fuck's sake! I shouldn't have to do that, asshole!
Seize hold of and demand that it's your definitions that count.
Oh, my definitions that count. Oh, no, I'm saying logic counts, fuckhead. I'm saying rationality counts, fuckhead. And I'm saying I'm not a god, and I know I'm not a god. I know my feelings aren't special, fuckhead. You're the bigot, okay? Defining yourself as something more important. Why should it matter whether there's negative numbers everywhere else? Why should it matter? Why should it matter if the only thing that matters is whether I'm poisoned? It doesn't matter whether anybody else is poisoned. There's some kind of logic there. There's no logic there, fuckhead! Just saying. I mean, this is really, like I said, I've said this before. I could have this conversation with a 6-year-old, and they'd get it. They'd get it. I could explain to them that you're conscious. See, I can pinch you, and you feel, and you're sick sometimes, and it's really unpleasant, and you feel horrible. And that's happening to the other people, like your brother and your sister. You see, they feel like that too. They have the same kind of experience. And it's bad when it happens to them, just like it's bad when it happens to you. So there's no way a 6-year-old can get this. So many people who can't get this are assholes who have tied themselves to unicorns or dragons or some other absolute fucking bullshit, and they have their head shoved up the anus of their fairy tale. That's the only way you can't get this. You have to have your head shoved up the anus of bullshit. Of nonsense. The nonsense, mystical, I'm special, wonder beast. Retarded. No. Delusional.